The courtroom was already full before the judge entered. Reporters whispered to one another. Lawyers shuffled stacks of papers. Families sat quietly on wooden benches, each carrying their own fears and hopes. Everyone believed they already knew how the day would end. They were wrong, because before sunset a single child would stand before the entire courtroom and silence every person inside. Even the cameras stopped clicking. No one could imagine that one quiet man sitting near the back, Keanu Reeves, would become the reason an innocent family finally found hope again. It all began 3 months earlier. Rain poured over downtown Seattle as Keanu quietly left a small independent bookstore. He wore a simple black jacket, blue jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He wasn't trying to hide. He simply enjoyed living like everyone else. As he crossed the street, he noticed something unusual. A little girl, no older than 9, stood alone outside the courthouse. She wasn't crying. She wasn't asking anyone for help. She simply stared at the huge stone building while holding a worn-out teddy bear against her chest. People walked past without noticing. Keanu slowed his steps. Something about her expression felt far older than her years. He approached carefully. "Hi," he said gently. She looked up. "You look like someone who's carrying a very heavy day." The girl hesitated before answering. "My daddy says brave people don't cry where strangers can see." Keanu smiled softly. "Your dad sounds wise." She nodded. He didn't do anything wrong. The sentence came out so naturally that Keanu froze for a second. "What do you mean?" She looked toward the courthouse. "They're trying to send him away." Her name was Lily. Her father, Daniel Carter, worked as a school bus mechanic. 3 weeks earlier, he had been arrested after being accused of stealing expensive equipment from the transportation company where he worked. Every piece of evidence seemed to point toward him. Security footage showed someone wearing his jacket. His fingerprints were found on the storage room door. Money had mysteriously appeared in his bank account to everyone else. The case looked simple, but Lily never doubted her father. "My daddy fixes buses," she quietly told Keanu. "He comes home covered in grease every day." She squeezed her teddy bear tighter. "He doesn't even know how to lie." Those words stayed with Keanu long after they said goodbye. That evening, Keanu couldn't stop thinking about the little girl. He had seen many difficult stories throughout his life, but something felt different. Not because Daniel might be innocent, because Lily believed in him with absolute certainty. Children sometimes see truths adults ignore. Keanu made one phone call, not to the media, not to the police. He called an old friend named Rebecca Lawson. Rebecca had spent 25 years investigating wrongful convictions. "If you're calling me," she laughed over the phone, "someone needs help." "I think so." "You think?" "I met a little girl today." Rebecca became serious immediately. "Tell me everything." Over the next week, Rebecca quietly reviewed the public court records. Something strange appeared almost immediately. The fingerprints matched Daniel. But only on the outside handle, not inside the room where the stolen equipment had disappeared. Security footage existed, yet nobody had questioned why the camera mysteriously stopped recording for exactly 6 minutes. Even stranger, the bank deposit had been made through an anonymous cash machine several miles away, while Daniel had been working overtime. "Something doesn't fit," Rebecca admitted, "but proving it will be difficult." Keanu asked only one question. "If he were your brother?" Rebecca didn't hesitate. "I'd keep digging." Meanwhile, inside the county jail, Daniel had almost given up. His lawyer warned him that accepting a plea bargain could reduce his sentence. "If you fight," the attorney explained, "you could lose everything." Daniel lowered his head. "But I didn't steal anything." "I know." "Then why does everyone keep asking me to admit it?" The lawyer had no answer. Days later, Lily visited her father. She slid a crayon drawing across the table. It showed 3 people holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. Daniel smiled despite everything. "You made this?" She nodded. "And look." She pointed toward a 4th figure standing beside them. It was a man wearing black clothes. "Who's that?" "The nice man." "What nice man?" "The one outside the courthouse." "He said brave people don't quit." Daniel's eyes widened. "You met someone?" He listened. Daniel looked carefully at the drawing. The face wasn't detailed, but something about the simple beard and dark hair seemed familiar. Across town, Rebecca uncovered another mystery. The company that accused Daniel had quietly filed insurance claims before the theft had even been officially reported. The timeline made no sense. Either someone had predicted the crime, or someone had planned it. When she shared the discovery with Keanu, he leaned back silently. "So this isn't just about stolen equipment," Rebecca nodded. "I think someone needed a scapegoat." "But who?" Before Rebecca could answer, her phone rang. She listened for nearly a minute. Then her face turned pale. "What happened?" Keanu asked. She slowly lowered the phone. The only employee who wanted to testify for Daniel just disappeared. The room became silent. Outside, thunder echoed across the city. And inside the courthouse, preparations continued for what everyone believed would be an ordinary trial. No one knew that before it was over. A child would say something that would change every life in that courtroom forever. The morning of the trial arrived beneath a gray Seattle sky. Outside the courthouse, television crews adjusted their cameras while reporters rehearsed their opening lines. To them, it seemed like another routine criminal case, a hard-working mechanic accused of theft, evidence that appeared convincing, a verdict that many believed was only a matter of time. Inside the courthouse, however, the atmosphere felt different. Keanu Reeves quietly entered through a side entrance. He wore the same simple black jacket and kept his head down. He had not come as a celebrity. He had come because he had made a promise to himself after meeting Lily. He would not walk away if the truth still had a chance. Rebecca Lawson joined him near the back of the courtroom. "I checked every lead," she whispered. "Anything new?" She hesitated. "The missing witness still hasn't been found." Keanu frowned. "And the insurance records?" "They're real. Someone planned something months before the equipment disappeared. But we still can't prove who." Before either of them could speak again, the courtroom doors opened. All rise. The judge entered, and everyone stood. The trial had begun. The prosecutor wasted no time. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began confidently, "this case is straightforward. The defendant had access, opportunity, and financial motive. One photograph after another appeared on a large screen. Daniel's fingerprints, the security footage showing a figure wearing his company jacket, the unexpected money deposited into his account. Each piece of evidence looked convincing. The jury watched carefully. Some nodded. Daniel sat quietly beside his attorney, his hands folded tightly together. Across the room, Lily sat beside her grandmother, clutching the same worn teddy bear. She never looked away from her father. When the defense attorney stood, his voice remained calm. "My client has worked honestly for 19 years. He displayed photographs of Daniel repairing school buses during snowstorms, volunteering on weekends, and helping local families without asking for anything in return." "Character alone cannot prove innocence," the prosecutor interrupted. "No," the defense replied, "but lies often hide behind appearances." The room became still. Rebecca quietly leaned toward Keanu. "They're planting doubt." "It's not enough," Keanu answered. "I know." Hours passed as witnesses took the stand. One supervisor insisted Daniel had been acting nervous. Another employee claimed he had seen Daniel near the storage building. But during cross-examination, small cracks began to appear. The supervisor admitted he hadn't actually spoken with Daniel that day. The second employee confessed he had viewed Daniel from nearly 100 yards away during heavy rain. "It could have been someone else," he admitted reluctantly. The jurors exchanged quick glances. For the first time, certainty began to fade. Then came another surprise. Rebecca received a text message, unknown number. Only 6 words appeared. "Look inside locker number 17. No name, no explanation." She immediately slipped out of the courtroom. Keanu watched her leave, but remained seated. Minutes later, Rebecca reached an old employee locker room inside the transportation garage. Locker number 17 had been abandoned years earlier. Inside was an old toolbox. Beneath it sat a small flash drive wrapped in electrical tape. Rebecca's heart raced. She hurried back toward the courthouse. Meanwhile, the prosecution called its strongest witness, The company's operations manager. He spoke confidently. Our internal investigation proved Mr. Carter acted alone. The defense attorney asked quietly, "Did your company receive an insurance payment after the theft?" "Yes." "When was the claim submitted?" The manager shifted uncomfortably. A few days later, the attorney held up official documents. "Would you like to explain why these records show your company began preparing that insurance claim almost 2 weeks before the equipment disappeared?" The courtroom fell silent. The manager blinked rapidly. I don't remember. You don't remember?" "No." The jurors leaned forward. Something was changing. Just then, Rebecca returned. She quietly handed the flash drive to the defense attorney. "What is this?" he whispered. "I don't know yet." The attorney requested a brief recess. The judge agreed. Within minutes, a court technician opened the drive. Everyone gathered around the monitor. Security footage appeared, not from the courthouse, from inside the transportation warehouse. The timestamp matched the night of the theft. The video revealed something shocking. Daniel wasn't stealing equipment. He was repairing a broken school bus engine. At the same time, 2 other employees wheeled expensive equipment through another loading door, completely outside the original camera angle investigators had shown in court. Rebecca stared at the screen. They edited the evidence. The defense attorney nodded slowly. They only showed 6 minutes. Keanu remembered the missing gap. Exactly 6 minutes. The same mysterious 6 minutes Rebecca had questioned days earlier. Court resumed immediately. The defense presented the newly discovered footage. Gasps echoed throughout the room. The prosecutor looked stunned. The operations manager turned pale. For the first time since his arrest, Daniel lifted his head. Hope returned to his eyes, but the judge remained cautious. "This evidence raises serious questions," she said. "However, we still need testimony verifying its authenticity," Rebecca quietly whispered. "The technician who maintained these cameras." Keanu looked at her. "The missing witness." She nodded. "If we don't find him, this video might not be enough." As the afternoon wore on, tension filled every corner of the courtroom. The jury no longer looked convinced. Neither side felt certain. Then the courthouse doors suddenly opened. A police officer entered quickly and approached the judge. He handed over a folded note. The judge read it carefully. Her expression changed. She looked toward the attorneys. "It appears the court has located the missing maintenance technician." A wave of whispers spread across the room. The man entered slowly. His face looked exhausted. His hands trembled. He glanced nervously toward the operations manager before taking the witness stand. "State your name." "Michael Evans." The defense attorney stepped closer. "Mr. Evans, why did you disappear?" Michael swallowed hard. "Because someone paid me to stay away." The courtroom erupted with shocked murmurs. The judge struck the gavel. "Order," Michael continued. "They told me if I testified, my family would lose everything." The prosecutor stared in disbelief. The operations manager avoided everyone's eyes. Michael looked directly at the jury. "I couldn't live with the guilt anymore." Everyone thought that confession would end the case. But then something completely unexpected happened. A quiet voice echoed from the gallery. "Your Honor." Every head turned. It was Lily. She stood slowly, still holding her teddy bear. Tears filled her eyes, but her voice never shook. "I know something nobody else knows." The courtroom fell completely silent. Even the judge stopped speaking. Keanu looked at Lily with concern. Rebecca whispered, "What could she possibly know?" Lily took one small step forward, then another. She looked at her father, then toward the witness stand. Finally, she whispered 7 words that froze every person inside the courtroom. "I saw who really stole everything." For a long moment, no one in the courtroom moved. The air itself seemed frozen. The judge leaned forward, her voice calm but serious. "Lily, do you understand that you must tell the truth?" The little girl nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." "Come forward." Lily walked slowly toward the witness stand, still holding her worn teddy bear. Her small footsteps echoed through the silent courtroom. She looked frightened, but every time she glanced at her father, she found the courage to keep going. Keanu Reeves watched quietly from the back of the courtroom. He had seen brave people in many situations throughout his life, but he had never seen courage look so small or so powerful. After taking the oath, Lily sat in the witness chair. The defense attorney smiled gently. "Lily, tell us what you remember." She took a deep breath. "The night before Daddy was arrested, I couldn't sleep. The courtroom remained completely silent. My dad had forgotten his lunchbox at work. So what happened? My grandma drove us to the bus garage. She looked down for a moment before continuing. We stayed outside because Daddy was finishing late. And then I saw two men pushing big boxes into a white delivery van." The prosecutor stood. "Can you identify those men?" Lily nodded slowly. "One of them is sitting right there." She pointed toward the company's operations manager. Gasps filled the courtroom. The manager immediately shook his head. "She's confused," but Lily continued. "I remember because he dropped a flashlight." She reached into the pocket of her small jacket. I picked it up. Everyone watched as she carefully placed an old silver flashlight onto the evidence table. "My grandma told me to keep it safe because someone might come looking for it." The courtroom clerk examined it. Engraved on the side were the company's initials and the operations manager's employee identification number. The room erupted into whispers. The judge called for order. The defense attorney held up the flashlight. "Mr. Harrison," he asked the operations manager, "is this yours?" I don't know." "You don't know." "It looks similar." Rebecca quietly handed another document to the attorney. "This maintenance report shows this flashlight was assigned exclusively to Mr. Harrison 6 months before the theft." The manager's face turned pale. For the first time during the trial, he had no answer. Then came another unexpected moment. The maintenance technician, Michael Evans, stood up again. "I need to say something else." The judge allowed him to continue. "I didn't just edit the security footage." The courtroom fell silent again. "I was ordered to." "By whom?" the defense asked. Michael slowly turned toward the operations manager. "He told me the company was drowning in debt. He said they needed the insurance money. He promised nobody innocent would get hurt." Michael's voice broke. "But then Daniel was arrested. I wanted to tell the truth. But I was threatened." Tears filled his eyes. "I've carried that guilt every day." The prosecutor requested a short recess. When court resumed, something remarkable happened. After reviewing the new evidence, the prosecutor stood before the judge. "Your Honor, the state is withdrawing all charges against Daniel Carter." A wave of emotion swept across the courtroom. Daniel closed his eyes. For weeks he had imagined this moment. Yet hearing those words still felt unbelievable. His attorney placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It's over," Daniel whispered. "Thank God." Across the room, Lily burst into tears. She ran toward her father. The judge smiled gently. "Go ahead." Daniel knelt as Lily wrapped her arms around him. "I told them you didn't do it." He hugged her tightly. "You never stop believing." "I never will." Even several jurors quietly wiped tears from their eyes. Court officers then approached the operations manager. He looked around desperately. There has to be some mistake, but there wasn't. The newly recovered warehouse footage, the flashlight, the insurance records, Michael's testimony, and Lily's memory had completed the puzzle. The manager was placed under arrest, as investigators announced that another former employee had also been taken into custody earlier that afternoon. The real conspiracy had finally been uncovered. Justice had arrived, but only because ordinary people refused to give up. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed toward Daniel. Microphones filled the air. "Mr. Carter, how do you feel?" He smiled through tears. "I don't want revenge. I just want my daughter to grow up believing that the truth is worth fighting for." Those words quickly spread across news broadcasts across the country, but Daniel wasn't finished. He walked through the crowd until he reached Keanu Reeves. Without saying a word, he held out his hand. Keanu shook it. "No," Daniel said quietly. Then he pulled Keanu into a heartfelt hug. "If you hadn't listened to my daughter, I might never have come home." Keanu smiled. "I didn't save you. Lily did." He looked at the little girl. She reminded everyone what courage really looks like. A few weeks later, life slowly returned to normal. Daniel was offered his job back. This time, he accepted a better position with a different transportation company whose owners had followed the case and admired his honesty. Rebecca helped investigators improve evidence review procedures to reduce the risk of wrongful convictions. Michael Evans accepted responsibility for his actions and cooperated fully with authorities, hoping to rebuild his life by telling the truth. As for Lily, she became something of a local hero. Her school invited her to speak during an assembly about courage. Standing on the small stage, she looked at hundreds of students. "I was scared," she smiled, "but brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you tell the truth." Anyway, the auditorium erupted in applause. One autumn afternoon, Keanu received a handwritten letter. Inside was the same crayon drawing Lily had once given her father. Only now, it had changed. The four people were still standing beneath the bright yellow sun, but there was something new. Behind them stood an entire community: neighbors, teachers, police, officers, mechanics, children, everyone holding hands. On the back, Lily had written, "One person can listen, one child can speak, one truth can change many lives. Thank you for listening." Keanu quietly folded the letter and placed it inside his desk, not because it reminded him of fame, not because it reminded him of a courtroom, but because it reminded him of something much more important. Our kindness often begins with listening. Justice often begins with courage, and sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that changes everything.